spectators of the play, or rather, we are both. We watch ourselves, and the mere wonder of the spectacle enthralls us. In the present case, what is it that has really happened? Someone has killed herself for the love of you. I wish that I had ever had such an experience. It would have made me in love with love for the rest of my life. Pause. Whoa. Okay, so Lord Henry suggests that the reason that tragedies hurt us so much in real life is because they're so brutal and unexpected and inartistic. You cross on the street, boom, you're hit by a bus, right? Like, it's brutal. You don't expect it to happen. Other people mourn because it came so fast and there was no build-up and it's not artistic. But if life hits you in an artistic way and it's built up and you feel like it's the way it's supposed to go, then you can look at it as a spectator and not be hurt by it. That's an interesting, disturbing theoretical take. But remember, Lord Henry is using Dorian as a work of art. He's the spectator. Dorian is the play. He's molding the play as it goes on. We've had this discussion, sort of internal monologue from Lord Henry before. Then here he is, like influencing Dorian even more. I wish that I had ever had such an experience. It would have made me in love with love for the rest of my life. The people who have adored me, there have not been very many, but there have been some, have always insisted on living on long after I cease to care for them, or they to care for me. They have become stout and tedious, and when I meet them, they go in at once for reminiscences, that awful memory of woman. What a fearful thing it is, and what an utter intellectual stagnation it reveals. One should absorb the color of life, but one should never remember its details. Details are always vulgar. I mean, again, here's Lord Henry railing against women. It's going to continue and get worse. Why is Lord Henry doing it now, though? I think this is a question that we should ask as readers. Obviously, Lord Henry's trying to influence Dorian to forget Sibyl. What better way than to make him dismiss women entirely? So you can think about that. I must sow poppies in my garden, sighed Dorian. This is, of course, a metaphor. Poppies are the basis of the drug opium. And so, it's a PC way in Victorian times of Dorian being like, I gotta smoke some dope. Right, like he's going off and having some opium. There is no necessity, rejoined his companion. Life has always poppies in her hands. Of course, now and then things linger. I once wore nothing but violets all through one season as a form of artistic mourning for a romance that would not die. Ultimately, however, it did die. I forget what kills it. I think it was her proposing to sacrifice the whole world for me. That is always a dreadful moment. It fills one with the terror of eternity. Well, would you believe it? A week ago, at Lady Hampshire's, I found myself seated at dinner next to the lady in question, and she insisted on going over the whole thing again, and digging up the past, and raking up the future. I had buried my romance in a bed of asphodel. She dragged it out again and assured me that I had spoiled her life. I am bound to state that she ate an enormous dinner, so I did not feel any anxiety. But what a lack of taste she showed. The one charm of the past is that it is the past. But women never know when the curtain has fallen. That they always want a sixth act, and as soon as the interest of the play is entirely over, they propose to continue it. If they were allowed their own way, every comedy would end in a tragedy, and every tragedy would culminate in a farce. Pause. This metaphor is carefully chosen by Lord Henry. It's a play metaphor. He's making light of women and of the past. And he's using a play metaphor to make the reality that Dorian just experienced with Sibyl Vane feel less real. It was all a play. The curtain is down on the final act. You can walk away from it and the play is over. You just remember it like a spectator. So you can see how Lord Henry is laying down this groundwork, even in the metaphors that he's choosing and in the way that he's using language. They are charmingly artificial, but they have no sense of art. You are more fortunate than I am. I assure you, Dorian, that not one of the women I have known would have done for me what Sibyl Vane did for you. Ordinary women always console themselves. Some of them do it by going in for sentimental colors. Never trust a woman who wears mauve, whatever her age may be, or a woman over 35 who is fond of pink ribbons. It always means that they have a history. Others find a great consolation in suddenly discovering the good qualities of their husbands. They flaunt their conjugal felicity in one's face as if it were the most fascinating of sins. Religion consoles some. Its mysteries have all the charm of flirtation, a woman once told me, and I can quite understand it. Besides, nothing makes one so vain as being told that one is a sinner. Conscience makes egoists of us all. Yet, there is really no end to the consolations that women find in modern life. Indeed, I have not mentioned the most important one. What is that, Harry? Asked the lad listlessly. No, the obvious consolation, taking someone else's admirer when one loses one's own. In good society, that always whitewashes a woman. But really, Dorian, how different Sibyl Vane must have been from the women one meets. There is something to me quite beautiful about her death. I am glad I am living in a century when such wonders happen. They make one believe in the reality of the things we all play with, such as romance, passion, and love. I was terribly cruel to her, you forget that. I am afraid that women appreciate cruelty, downright cruelty, more than anything else. They have wonderfully primitive instincts. We have emancipated them, but they remain slaves, looking for their masters all the same. They love being dominated. I am sure you were splendid. I have never seen you really and absolutely angry, but I can fancy how delightful you looked. And after all, you said something to me the day before yesterday that seemed to me at the time to be merely fanciful, but that I see now was absolutely true and holds the key to everything. What was that, Harry? You said to me that Sibyl Vane represented to you all the heroines of romance, that she was Desdemona one night and Ophelia the other, that if she died as Juliet, she came to life as Imogen. She will never come to life again now, muttered the lad, burying his face in his hands. No, she will never come to life. She has played her last part. Is this an implication that her life was her last part? But you must think of that lonely death in the tawdry dressing room simply as a strange, lurid fragment from some Jacobean tragedy, as a wonderful scene from Webster or Ford or Cyril Tournier. The girl never really lived, and so she has never really died. To you, at least, she was always a dream, a phantom that flitted through Shakespeare's plays and left them lovelier for its presence, a reed through which Shakespeare's music sounded richer and more full of joy. The moment she touched actual life, she marred it, and it marred her, and so she passed away. Mourn for Ophelia, if you like. Put ashes on your head because Cordelia was strangled. Cry out against heaven because the daughter of Brabantio died. But don't waste your tears over Sibyl Vane. She was less real than they are. Whew! She never really lived, and so she has never really died. She was just an actress in a play. Mourn for Desdemona, mourn for the characters who died, but don't mourn for Sibyl. She was less real than they are? This is a really dangerous statement. And it's definitely immoral, in every possible way. There was a silence. The evening darkened the room. Noiselessly and with silver feet, the shadows crept in from the garden. The colors faded wearily out of things. That's personification, but hold up. Lord Henry makes this statement, this immoral, influential statement to Dorian, and the next scene is silence. Remember the silence that happened when Lord Henry was influencing Dorian the first time when he was being painted, and Basil captured the perfect expression on his face. That silence was when Dorian was thinking and internalizing and accepting Lord Henry's soul. We have that happen here again, but what's happening while this happens? It gets dark outside. The evening darkened the room. Noiselessly and with silver feet, the shadows crept in from the garden. The garden. Right, so the shadows are creeping into the room, but they're creeping into Dorian too. This little tidbit of personification is used perfectly by Oscar Wilde to create an image that is symbolic to the reader. After some time, Dorian Gray looked up. "You have explained me to myself, Harry," he murmured with something of a sigh of relief. "I felt all that you have said, but somehow I was afraid of it, and I could not express it myself. How well you know me. But we will not talk again of what has happened. It has been a marvelous experience, that is all. I wonder if life still has in store for me anything as marvelous." Sibyl Vane's death is a marvelous experience to him, that is all. "Life has everything in store for you, Dorian. There is nothing that you, with your extraordinary good looks, will not be able to do. But suppose, Harry, I become haggard and old and wrinkled, what then?" "Ah, then," said Lord Henry, rising to go, "then, my dear Dorian, you would have to fight for your victories. As it is, they are brought to you. No, you must keep your good looks. We live in an age that reads too much to be wise, and that thinks too much to be beautiful. We cannot spare you. And now you had better dress, and drive down to the club. We are rather late as it is. I think I shall join you at the opera, Harry. I feel too tired to eat anything. What's the number of your sister's box? 27, I believe. It is on the grand tier. You will see her name on the door. But I am sorry you won't come and dine. I don't feel up to it, said Dorian listlessly, but I am awfully obliged to you for all that you have said to me. You are certainly my best friend. No one has ever understood me as you have. We are only at the beginning of our friendship, Dorian, answered Lord Henry, shaking him by the hand. Pause again. So, Dorian's going to go to the opera. Day after his fiancée kills herself, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to go to the opera. Also, if Lord Henry is Satan, if allegorically he's Satan and Dorian is humanity, this exchange, I think, is really powerful. You are certainly my best friend. No one has ever understood me as you have. And then Lord Henry / Satan responds, we are only at the beginning of our friendship, Dorian. Goodbye. I shall see you before 9:30, I hope. Remember, Patty is singing. As he closed the door behind him, Dorian Gray touched the bell, and in a few moments Victor appeared with the lamps and drew the blinds down. He waited impatiently for him to go. The man seemed to take an interminable time over everything. As soon as he had left, he rushed to the screen and drew back. No, there was no further change in the picture. It had received the news of Sibyl Vane's death before he had known of it himself. It was conscious of the events of life as they occurred. The vicious cruelty that marred the fine lines of the mouth had, no doubt, appeared at the very moment that the girl had drunk the poison, or whatever it was. Or was it indifferent to results? Did it merely take cognizance of what passed within the soul? He wondered. Actually, pause. So this is an important question, I think, a philosophical question. Is it the action, the result of the action, or the intent behind the action that causes the picture, the soul, to change? Does Dorian's soul change because of the evil thought and the evil way that he acted, or because Sibyl died? We can't know at this point because he didn't come back to his house and see the change in the picture until after she was already dead, having come back in the morning. So, we don't know. But listen to this line. Did it merely take cognizance of what passed within the soul? He wondered and hoped that someday he would see the change taking place before his very eyes, shuddering as he hoped it. So much for his resolution, right? He made a resolution not to be influenced by Lord Henry, to be good forever, that the picture would be a mirror of his soul. What is it Lord Henry said earlier? Resolutions are checks we draw in a bank where we have no money, no account. Fraudulent checks. I mean, that's clearly, in Dorian's case, he has no money in the bank of, I'm going to be good. And so he can't draw that money. Poor Sibyl. What a romance it had been. She had often mimicked death on the stage. Then death himself had touched her and taken her with him. How had she played that dreadful last scene? Had she cursed him as she died? No, she had died for love of him. And love would always